Greetings, John Tiller Software Panzer Campaigns players to my Scheldt 44 Scenario 0904018 Antwerp Taurus Pursuant playthrough. When I left you last time we were up to turn 7, which was 1800 hours on the 4th of September. Movement through the countryside here is somewhat problematic. Soft conditions underfoot, and as you can see here in front of my armoured unit that I'm moving, all the bridges there are secondary bridges, so we can't move over them. So I try a bit of an experiment here and try going around it to the steel bridge to our right. And the main issue with all this, of course, is negotiating the streams. It's not so bad for tracked vehicles. It goes from stream is 6 and primary road, for instance, is 4, so it's not really a problem. But for motorised transport, streams really stop them in their tracks. So at this stage I'm thinking about advancing and at the same time blocking the infantry unit and the 2 anti-aircraft units, so I can clean them up as we go, but hopefully not slow down our advance too much. With only 19 turns in this scenario, you have to move fairly briskly. With reconnaissance units, well, the best thing to use them for is reconnaissance, so we'll send this guy up the road. The basic division of responsibility I'm trying to engineer is for the armoured units to take on the infantry and our infantry to take on their anti-aircraft guns. Also in the back of my mind at this stage is the fact that it is 1800 hours and we have to make sure our units are within command range of our headquarters at the midnight turn. The game will punish you quite severely if your units are outside of command range regarding supply. So this guy I'm moving across with a view to be one of the units to block in those German units just to the south. And this armoured unit will close the door on those southern units. My original thought was to go around the right hand or eastern flank of Antwerp, but I think time might be a pressing issue here, and I've decided to take on this reasonably thin screen of anti-aircraft guns and infantry, although there is good defensive positions to be had in the towns and they are dug in at bunker level, and we have no air support. Moving by rail is quite expensive for motorised units, being 12 points as against primary road being 4 and secondary being 5. Given that we have quite a good number of infantry units, I'm pretty confident we'll knock over these anti-aircraft guns reasonably quickly. When you get to the evening turns, be careful with keeping your headquarters in transport mode. That halves their command range, which you can see with the letter K. Tracked rail movement isn't so bad at 6. Movement in JTS games sometimes looks too easy, in that you just get your unit and plonk it along, but the speed of your force moving around the map really is determined by your choice of route for your unit. So it is a good idea to get to know all these different movement costs, particularly if you're playing the Russian. They have poor movement generally, and then if you move them poorly they will be even slower. So as I say, while the movement does seem easy to move them around the place, to move them efficiently, perhaps optimally, you do need to pay particularly close attention to what units can do what. Sometimes for tactical reasons it doesn't matter what the cost is, you just need to get your unit into a particular location, but for most movement you have a choice of where you place your units and what method you use. So if you find yourself losing games because you don't seem to make the victory locations, well, often it's just because of your choice of movement. It's a skill which is underestimated in the game, I think. Turn 8, so we have a irregular unit which we can put in disruption mode if we choose. I think they're mainly inconvenience factors at this stage. Okay, so it won't let me deploy it in that hex because it is more than 9 hexes from the irregular unit. So, elementary mistake. Basically, I'm looking for retreat routes of the German units so that the deception units can cause them inconvenience. Areas where the German units may be in travel mode, either reinforcing the front or retreating from the front. So the goal of this turn is to get enough infantry units and armoured units to the north to take on the anti-aircraft gun on the left and the infantry unit on the right, and making sure we keep all our units within command range, and finish our headquarter movement with them going back to deployed state from transport. A couple of units outside, but they're well within movement range. With a bit of luck we'll get rid of this anti-aircraft unit. And I get one disrupted. Now that's a better result. Rather than having an all-in assault attack, often I'll only attack by unit, so that if a unit's not required they can then move, as opposed to having one giant attack and squashing the unit in one attack. Although at times it could very well be more efficient having one big attack. Something you need to consider when doing your movement is the unit stacking penalty. Sometimes it's best to move your headquarters and your artillery off the road if you want to place them, so that other units can traverse up and down the main roads without movement penalty. I'm sure the concept of convoy management could take up a whole video by itself. I'm sure if anyone's played Bulge 44, they'll tell you all about the complexities of managing convoys. But it certainly is a big topic in playing these JTS games. As I say, it's not a skill that seems immediately apparent, but a skillful convoy manager, if I can put it that way, could win many games just by being efficient at movement. And I dare say, under the bonnet here of Scheldt 44, the maps here are all on very flat terrain, so you don't have to negotiate elevation change and that type of thing. But negotiating the differences between the different road types and rail types, negotiating streams and rivers, they really are probably the critical movement issues for this title. Preferred to have moved this armoured unit to the north, but we do need to take care of business with this infantry unit. So that's always the cost benefit situation you're trying to weigh up in your own mind. Is it worth just charging forward and leaving these guys behind, or do you tidy up as you go? First job is to pin them, like I have at the moment. They can't escape from that hex now, so it's just a matter of time to reduce them and then eliminate them from the battle, at the cost of keeping these couple of units down south. So my infantry, which did a nice job on the anti-aircraft, getting them north is the next issue. So turn 9, the first of our night turns. Now this is where we could possibly torpedo ourselves, and by continuing our attack into the night, it does keep us moving forward, but at the cost of fatigue. So always need to be very careful about attacking at night time. Torpedoing oneself was something that happened to all navies during the Second World War. Unfortunate when you're adopting new technology that these issues do occur. But in our case here, I'm not sure how well the British troops react to night action. Whenever units move at night, of course they risk being disrupted. Also, if they move at night, as well as the fatigue going up, they also don't get replacements, which you can only get if the units do nothing in that turn, just stay stationary. So it's those two pushing and pulling factors you need to consider when pressing ahead with your night operations. It's something that a Russian player can use against the Germans, because they have more units generally. You have part of the force continues to attack the Germans, and so they can't get replacements and increase their fatigue factors, while the other half of the Russian force quote unquote sleeps and gets the replacements. So management of fatigue and replacements is another one of those critical issues under the bonnet. Or for our American friends, hood, under the hood. rather than a woman's hat. So this is always the risk of cleaning up as you go. Although the infantry unit is isolated and disrupted, they can still take time to reduce and eliminate. But I think the idea of having just a couple of units do this task while the rest pushes forward is still worth considering. So he's going to hang on for another turn. Well, up here in the north we have displaced that infantry unit from their bunker, so it's just a matter now of widening this breakthrough, and then the rest of our units can pour through this gap. And on to Antwerp. Should have known there'd be an anti-aircraft unit in that hex, really. Disruption is going to be an issue for us, I think, going forward. So the infantry and engineers, I'm hoping, will take out that anti-aircraft gun, anti-tank gun on the left, and then we're pretty right then to push through on this main road going north. Really need to get these infantry units moving. That's a bit better. Right. So they're about one phase behind the front line at the moment. I'm thinking they will take the battle on in Antwerp itself. Not really planning on pushing the armoured units into the city area, but we'll just have to play that a little bit by ear, as they say. And on we go to turn 10, so definitely at halfway. Finally we got that bridge built down south. Goodness me, that took a few turns to get built. So don't depend on building a bridge in this game. 19 units gained fatigue, so that's the cost of that last turn at night time, and I imagine we're going to pay a fair price in disruption, but we will see. Unfortunately, a lot of red ink over our units. This is going to be a big issue for us now on the run home, is managing the disruption. So this turn really is highlighting the cost of running night operations and then expecting the same units to back up. And that's just not attacking, that's other units that I've moved into position. Well, everything considered, I think that was a long night turn for us, particularly that second night turn. So we'll fight on in turn 11 of 19. The stop signs in Antwerp actually represent the crowds that were turning out in anticipation of the liberation of the town, Brussels being liberated on the day previous. Inspecting our troops at this stage is a very sad affair, with most being either disrupted, out of command, or low ammo. So with the troops out on their feet, all we can really do is a Montgomery and call something of a rest day for as many units as possible, or a rest 2 hours as this may be. So in the future, need to be cautious about running night ops with the Brits, I think. And this is the interesting subplot of all the JTS games, is the slightly different characteristics that are given to all the different nationalities and that sort of thing. So there's always plenty of variety and different aspects to the game, so buying one game isn't buying them all. They all have their different flavour. So a bit of a sad turn 11 for us as the attacker, where we have to call a bit of a halt, but this is the price. So we move on now to turn 12, the first full day turn. So we've certainly rolled through the scenarios, and the real critical turns are just about upon us. Unfortunately, we're still suffering from disruption. We have a couple of units which are coming good, but overall we're looking a little bit sad here, but we'll see what happens. We'll keep fighting on, and I'll be back with video 3, and we'll see if we can fight through the fatigue and on to Antwerp. Thanks for watching. See you next time.